on Creek to Coast, Roger Vickery's behind the wheel, taking us into some of the most unforgiving country in Queensland.
This is the fun of four-wheel drive touring. It's fantastic. Well, g'day from the Daintree River. A bunch of us blokes from ARB stores around the state have got together and come up here at Lachlan Brosnan's insistence. He runs the ARB store in Cairns and he's been trying to get us here for the last 12 months to have a look around his favourite area, the bottom end of Cape York. And now we're here at the Daintree River, it feels like we're finally on our way. A trip to Queensland's top end requires a four-wheel drive and plenty of preparation. We've tricked up our Forbies with our own top-notch accessories that we know we can depend on, and there's no doubt we'll be putting them to the test. Lockie, John, Mike and Dave all have ARB businesses to run, so we haven't given ourselves a lot of time. We're starting and finishing in Cairns, and the plan is to hightail it to Cooktown via Cape Tribulation, to take a side trip to the beach north of Cooktown, then to backtrack inland and up to Cape Melville. We've calculated that it's about 1,200 kilometres. You know, Dave, the first vehicle that ever made it all the way to the top was a baby Austin. Back in 1928, it was driven by two Kiwis. And every day they'd have 6 punctures or so, and when they came to creeks they'd have to swim across with a rope and use a block of tackle just to get across. So I'm glad we're doing it a bit easier than that, mate. For a long time, even getting through the lush Daintree rainforest was no mean feat. Originally, this would have been an Aboriginal walking path, then a packhorse trail cut through by early gold miners. There wasn't any vehicle access until the late 60s, and 20 years later, when the Bloomfield track was officially opened, there were plenty of people who weren't fans of the idea. The road to Cape Tribulation has turned out to be a favourite dry weather drive for tourists who can get this far comfortably in a conventional vehicle, and the Cape Trib camping ground is well set up to accommodate them.
Now on this trip we're going to be putting in some really long days, so we're all running these ARB rooftop tents. Flip them open. Simple as that.
These tents are little beauties, great for warmer climates because there's plenty of ventilation and insect screening. They're roomy, you're off the ground, and the fold-down ladder keeps the wildlife out. Well, that's bed sorted, and we're liking the look of the beachfront campground. It has great facilities, like a big camp kitchen and open fire. There's even a brand new wood-fired oven and an international chef who's got all the moves and really knows how to make a pizza.
Really good.
From Cape Tribulation, you'll see dotted lines on maps suggesting it's four-wheel drive only north to Cooktown. In recent years, the road has certainly improved, but I'd still be letting my tyres down to make them a little bit softer and give them more control on the gravel. You been here before, Lockie?
Well, I have, Rog. Mate, we quite often come up here with the dogs for the weekend and the missus, and so yeah, you can camp down on the grass over there. There's a running creek and stuff down there as well.
Yeah, beautiful. If the only thing you ever did with your four-wheel drive was to come to the Lion's Den Hotel at Helensvale, well then it'd be certainly worth having one. There's a well-worn path to the bar that miners, stockmen and fellow travellers have followed since 1875, and many of them have left a memento. On from the Lion's Den, you know you're getting close to Cooktown when you pass between the Black Mountains. Giant granite boulders stack up either side of the Mulligan Highway, and there are all sorts of stories of people, horses and mobs of cattle getting lost in a labyrinth of rocks, never to be seen again. There's plenty to see if you want to base yourself in Cooktown for a couple of days. It's a lovely little place, but we're just going once around the block for Captain Cook before looking for the turn off towards Hopevale. This vehicle can actually carry 390 litres of fuel. We're going to need every bit of it because we won't see fuel for another 4 days. And if you're on a trip like this and you want to know how much fuel you are going to need, times what you do use normally by 1.5. Hopevale's an Aboriginal community 45 kilometres northwest of Cooktown that might be familiar because it's home to a couple of notable footballers, North Queensland Cowboys favourite Matt Bowen and Rex Liddy from the Gold Coast Suns. Matty actually used to fish off the beach that we're heading for. It takes an hour on unsealed roads to get there.
Gee, you see this bay in front of us here? It's just dropped down a couple hundred metres down this hill and we're there at Eddie's campground, Elam Beach. Looks fantastic, mate.
Elam Beach is a beaut place to take it easy and get back to nature. But the star attraction has to be 85-year-old Eddie. He charges $10 a person a night to camp, but his knowledge of the area is priceless, and he's also very generous with his time, often showing visitors a few hunting skills.
You put that thing there like that, you hold it, when you come down here on the spear, you hold it tight towards the spear, so it won't fall off. You hold it tight against the ground, when you get it, then let it go.
You got him. You have a bit of sidearm action, Eddie.
Right?
Bit of sidearm action. Hey? No good, Eddie.
That was all right for first throw.
The tide's against us, but from camp we can see the coloured sands that most four-wheel drivers visit. Perhaps we'll save them for next time, because tomorrow we head into Lakefield National Park. Well, John, that's totally the end of his holiday, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's not unusual to have a situation like this where a fire could be caused by an electrical issue or a bit of grass under the car on one of the bash plates and gets lit up by the exhaust.
Well, mate, I've always said the minimum safety gear, 1's a fire extinguisher, 2's a first aid kit. He might have had a hope. A bunch of us blokes are testing some of the four-wheel drive tracks in Cape York Peninsula. Izabella Falls is our first chance since leaving the Daintree to give our vehicles a rinse. When you get off the main roads in Cape York, you're going to find your own fair share of creek crossings, and there's one simple rule.
And that rule is, if you can see the bottom, you should be right, but if you can't see the bottom, get out and walk it.
Of course, there's a little issue of crocs. We'll get to them a bit later. I'd avoid wading through water up here, so it helps that our vehicles are fitted with safari snorkels that take the engine's air inlet from headlight level up to roof level. Nice and easy today. We're moving into Lakefield National Park, now known as Rinniaroo. It's a whopping 550,000 square hectares of scrub that's impassable in the wet season. There's generally no one travelling here from late November until at least Easter. What have we got here, Lachlan? Where are you headed to, mate?
Down to Laura and up to Musgrave Roadhouse. I'll stay there for a couple of days and then I'll be back down to Cooktown because the weather's getting ready to shut me down for a while. And then next year, when it dries out, we're off up to Cape York.
It turns out that 71-year-old Noten Judd and his donkey Esther started out on the Australian Bicentennial National Trail in Victoria 2 years ago, and they've walked about 5,500 k's since.
See you, mate.
You might have heard stories about Cape York bull dust holes. Well, here's a beauty, a great example. They're full of talcum powder like dust, and when you drive into them, you sink in them and they give you a huge fright, so it's something to beware of. By lunchtime, we've reached the Norman River, or what's left of it. And here's something I wouldn't do a trip like this without. These awnings take no time to set up, and they go a long way towards making a stinking hot day bearable. The most popular size is 2.5 metres, and there's the option to clip on mozzie net sides so you can have a snooze. Our convoy's reached the end of Battle Camp Road, at a junction where the track goes north to even more remote territory. Old Laura Station is possibly the last evidence of settlement.
An Irishman, mate. I wonder what the hell he thought when he got out here. 1879.
It's established, and then by 1894, it had 8,000 head of cattle.
The public campgrounds around here are run by Derm, and if you haven't booked online, you'll need to find your way to a self-registration booth where you'll pay $5.30 an adult per night. We've been told that Calpower Crossing Campground is a good one, with shower and toilet facilities and fire rings.
Okay, just reversing back into the site, using the ARB reverse camera. Brilliant idea, safety-wise, and the camera actually has a microphone as well with the speaker. Kids or dogs, you'll hear or see what's going on. With your side mirrors and your reverse camera, theoretically, you should have all situations covered.
You can launch a rooftop or trailer boat at Calpower Crossing, and it's a lovely long water hole that's apparently really good fishing. It's also home to hungry crocs, so beware. You don't want to be swimming or standing in water above knee height. Avoid any slide marks and keep your arms in if you're on a boat. And Dern suggests camping at least 2 metres above the high water mark and 50 metres from the water's edge. So you didn't think you'd catch one, did you?
Oh, I was pretty certain of it, yeah.
Yeah? You got a good spot down there?
Oh, yeah. I'd like to think so.
You going back for more?
Yeah.
Oh, no. A 68 centimetre barramundi for our new mate Alan from the Atherton Tablelands, and a slightly smaller version for John. And then Alan comes back in no time at all with the clincher. Ah, another lovely fish. Now you've got a good spot up there, haven't you? We're on an ARB dealers tour of the bottom end of Cape York, and our 116 kilometre drive today is going to be the heaviest going so far. You might see a bit of signage around Lakefield National Park that refers to Cape York Peninsula Aboriginal land. Under a new agreement, Derm and the traditional owners now officially share a commitment to protect the nature and culture of the area. It means that you need to get permission from the right people before passing through or stopping to look around. This is the smoothest riding one we've been in.
I reckon. Rog, mate, what sideways were like when you first started?
No, they never made them out of square tube.
No? Mate, can you give us a tow, eh? I got a strap.
We were prepared for the track to Bathurst Bay to be pretty brutal, but a big stretch of it has recently been graded, and it doesn't live up to some of the horror stories that we've read. Mate, only 46 to Melville. Beautiful road, eh?
Mate, it is a nice road. It's very surprising, actually. They've got about 16 road crews that work full-time north of Cooktown on the road.
Yeah.
And the road conditions, one day they can be like this, the next day they can be really, really corrugated and rough.
Eventually the route through the scrub narrows, and as we near the coast, our old man Emu suspensions really start to get a workout. We're getting closer to Cape Melville itself, and the track has turned to white powdered sand. So we've had to stop and let our tyres down a bit more, and we'll see if that makes it easier for us. We were told to allow about 5 hours, and it hasn't taken us nearly that long to pop out at the Cape Melville end of Bathurst Bay. But I'd have to say, a dry track, good tyres and a strong suspension have played a hand in that. Bush camping is allowed here in the National Park as long as you don't bring pets and you take all your rubbish with you. Cape Melville itself is like a coastal version of the rugged Black Mountains that we pass south of Cooktown. You wouldn't believe it, but this peaceful stretch of water was once the scene of Australia's worst maritime disaster. In 1899, Cyclone Mahina delivered a 15-metre high tidal surge which went 10 kilometres inland. And with it, it took about 80 pearling luggers, and later they discovered over 300 people had been killed. Quite incredible. You wouldn't read about it, but here, in the back of beyond, John from ARB Capella Bar has run into some of his customers. You might even recognise this brave grandma, because she made the news a few years back over an incident that occurred on this very beach. Bill and Alicia Sorahan and the family are on their annual holiday up here.
She keeps calling it paradise. I keep saying, don't call it paradise because everyone will be up here.
And Alicia, you're the lady who jumped on the crocodile back in 2004
Yes,
and
I
saved
am.
the bloke from being taken.
Yes, I have,
Yeah. And you don't worry about crocodiles?
No, I'm not coming here.
So this place outweighs any crocodile threat?
Of course it does, yeah.
Beautiful,
Oh,
isn't
yeah. You think of it, but you don't, it doesn't bother you.
All I can say is lucky it wasn't a spider, it was a crocodile, because she wouldn't have saved him if it was a spider.
Camping here, you have to be self-sufficient, and on good days, the Sorahans catch their dinner. So you've eaten a few fish?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I had a feed of fish this time, yeah.
Feed,
Crabs, haven't I?
Crabs.
Yeah,
I was sick of-
beautiful.
I didn't think I'd ever say it, I got sick of eating crabs.
Water's something else you have to be organised about, but there's a beautiful little oasis just behind the beach, running with fresh water that's good for a drink and a dip. Refreshing. You wouldn't believe you could find a spot like this in the middle of nowhere. Stick around because after dinner and a good night's sleep, we turn tail and head for Laura. The greatest thing about these Forbies is the incredible places they can get you into. Total isolation. And when you are isolated, you might need to communicate. And the best way to do that is a satellite phone. And the people you leave at home will be very, very happy that you took one. And if you're not up for buying or hiring a sat phone, then consider an EPIRB as a bare essential. And while we're on the subject of keeping safe, then a recovery kit. That's a snatch strap, shackles and a dampener. They should be permanently in the back of the wagon. Who knows the name of that mountain up there?
Well, I was just having a look on the GPS here, and they got a flat hill that's marked on the map just in front of us.
Well, that'll be it then. The most straightforward way out of Bathurst Bay is back the way we came. These Cape York roads, as we've seen, we're looking at bull dust and corrugation, so they're the two major hazards. And when you're on the corrugations, the best speed is somewhere around the 90, if you can do it, something like that, and you get them up on top of them, and it's a lot more comfortable in the car than if you go slowly. There's an alternative route in and out of Cape Melville from Cooktown, along what they call the Stark Coastal Road, but by all accounts, it's a lot rougher and harder on vehicles. It would also have taken us more time than we had. By Calpower Crossing, we're already well and truly out of the soft stuff and re-inflating our tyres. Less than 100 k's later, we move from bull dust back to bitumen and the town of Laura. Laura's been an important supply centre since the gold rush days, and dusty convoys of four-wheel drives are now a familiar sight in its main street. Well, remember back at the start of the show, we talked about the two Kiwis who went to Cape York in 1928? Well, this is the same sort of car that those guys went in. Can you imagine two blokes, all their fuel, all their gear, going probably 5 times the distance we've done in the last few days? Unbelievable. From this point on, we're travelling the Peninsula Development Road south and on to our overnight accommodation. The PDR is one long artery that connects the Cape from Lakeland all the way to Bamaga. The first campground that we'll come across just happens to be a favourite of Lockie's. The Palmer River Roadhouse has powered van sites, space for tents and 4 permanent canvas rooms. Lockie recommends the Tucker, and there's a great little museum inside that anyone who wants to learn about the region's gold mining history will find fascinating.
So we'd all have to be pretty happy how things have gone so far.
Well, no surprise really, when you consider the history of ARB. It started off back in the 1970s when Tony Brown, Mr ARB himself, did virtually the same trip with the accessories he built himself.
Well, guys, in Cairns, we see that many people that are travelling to Cape York. If I had to put my finger on one thing, it'd be that people come up here with too much gear and are massively overloaded. So I'd recommend before you leave home, they lay the gear out, work out what it weighs, work out what your car can carry, and make sure that your suspension is well and truly capable of it. It's tough roads and tough conditions.
We put a lot of homework into preparing for our trip to Cape York Peninsula, and you can't beat local knowledge. So if you want to pick someone's brains about setting up your vehicle to make the journey, then contact the crew at ARB Cairns. You can also drop into the store for a copy of the latest road conditions. And for information about the best times to travel, access and permits, the DERM website is a good starting point. Our last look at the Cape is a sweeping panorama across cattle country from Bob's Lookout on the Daintree Range. Well, that's it for the show. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. It's not over for us yet though. We've still got a couple of 100 kilometres down through Mareeba and into Cairns, and that's where the big clean-up starts. And we'll see you again soon.
Creek to Coast is produced in proud partnership with BCF. Boating, camping and fishing, this is living. We drive vehicles supplied and serviced by the Motorama Group.